Hi there, and welcome to the Homestead Education Podcast. Do you have a homestead, a farm, or maybe just believe we have a right to the freedom of wholesome food? This is a show for families who believe everyone deserves an agricultural education to understand their food, land, and responsibility at a scale that fits real life. I'm your host, Cody Hanner. I'm a homesteader, a homeschool mom of 6, and an agricultural educator who spent years teaching families how to build real skills outside of broken systems. I was raised by an old school rancher and blessed by the grace of God to have been shaped by small town life, where food, work, and responsibility weren't dreams, they were just how you lived. This season, we're digging into how accessible small-scale agricultural education can build capable people, strengthen local food systems, and create meaningful change far beyond the homestead. Join me each week as we talk about food systems, education, and the real-world skills every generation needs, taught in ways that actually make sense. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Homestead Education Podcast. Today, I have Trent Van Leuwen on. He was the Idaho Agricultural Teacher of the Year in 2024, and he is here to talk about teaching kids in a more hands-on way, and I'm really excited to have this conversation with him. So welcome, Trent.
Thanks. And I was actually the Idaho State Teacher of the Year.
Not just the agricultural one, that is
Yeah,
even better.
yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I live in Mackay, Idaho. I grew up on a dairy farm in Roberts. We grew up and we had 200 milk cows that I got to work with. And I studied at the University of Idaho, agricultural education. And I spent 5 years right out of the financial crisis in 2009. I was teaching the West Ada School District in Meridian, Idaho, and I was the traveling ag teacher. So I went from working in the probably the most populous school district, the largest school district in the state, and then I moved to Little Mackay, Idaho, where last year we graduated 15. So I've, experienced education and agriculture at the largest school district, where I was teaching students that were just in subdivisions, to now we're up right alongside the state's tallest mountain range. So it's
Right.
different.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be a huge difference because you're teaching when you're teaching in a suburban neighborhood versus a rural neighborhood, you're teaching a whole different agriculture.
Oh, yeah, you grow up with the vocabulary working on a dairy farm, and I
Hmm.
mentioned steer at one particular point in my last school district, and I had a bunch of kids looking at me that had no idea what I was talking about. So then that moment I realized I needed to, teach the vocabulary I thought everybody came with.
Right? You kind of have to dial that back. I always like the question, how many steers are born in the US every year? I actually just had a little bull calf the other day and I had a friend up and she kept referring to him as my little steer. And I'm like, well, one day, but
Soon. Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. Actually, he's a full blood um man, like I said, like an hour's sleep last night. Brown Swiss that's A2A2. So I
Oh, yeah.
may put some feelers out before I decide to band him. But um so what was like the biggest difference you saw when you started working with the rural kids?
Well, I think they've had a lot more experiences. And I think that's kind of an important thing, is that students in subdivisions, they have the opportunity to be consumers, and they
Hmm.
consume everything, right? So we're not just talking about food, but we're talking about media, and you have an opportunity to produce when you're in a rural area. So many of my students, showed at the fair, even students that lived in town, they have opportunities to have livestock. And so, and they do everything. I mean, I would have students in these subdivisions and provide some incredible opportunity, and they were all so terribly busy that they couldn't do it. But, the students in our small school districts, they're on the football team, they're on the basketball team, they're the student body president, they're the FFA chapter president, and they do everything. I mean, they're well versed in a lot of things. And
And they just keep piling it on.
yep, and I'll get a phone call sometimes. Hey, do you have a student that perhaps could come and help me this weekend? I could pay them. And it's like, I'll see what I can do. But the students that are, really motivated to do that stuff, they're already working 2 or 3 jobs. I mean, they come at a premium. So,
Oh yeah, I know that one. I have five boys that they all do the fire department, and my daughter's right there with them. They call her the goat because
yeah.
she'll run up and down that mountain with hose 100 times if she has to. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see, like when I'm out on the road, I have a lot of parents ask, how do I get my kids out of the house and doing something? How do I get them to have more responsibility? And my first thing is usually just go ahead and take that phone or Xbox or whatever away. They'll find something to do.
Yeah.
But it is a difference because, I have friends come visit or I talk to people and they're just in awe of how much like my kids and their friends work and are trusted by adults. And that's the thing that I find that I love the most about working with rural kids.
Mhm. And, they walk down the street and the people know them.
Mhm.
My kids act a little bit differently. We had them in Boise. I was at a teachers conference, and I mean, they're friendly. They're talking with everybody, right? Because they're used to having people everywhere know who they are as they
Mhm.
go around town. And as we go to the grocery store, everybody says hi to them. So, I mean, they're personable kids.
Yeah, I was driving out to the fire line last night. I kept stopping to talk at all the checkpoints to let them know that I could be going out there. And my 6-year-old's in the back seat with the window down trying to talk to all the firemen.
Yeah.
Like no fear whatsoever. Like giant fire in front of me. How are you doing tonight?
Yeah.
So you have a pretty awesome setup at your school, right?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. Agriculture's been taught since 1987 at Mackey High School. Mr. Vernon Roach is the first ag teacher that we had there. Before him, we had Pratt Pearson, and he taught welding and automotive and engine theory. And I took over in 2014, and I came into a pretty awesome facility. They had an old fish lab, so they were raising trout. Uh, he has a hydroponic greenhouse, and currently we have a conservatory. We built a new fish lab that's 1,400 square feet. We have a partnership with the Idaho Fish and Game and the U.S.
Oh,
Forest
wow.
Service. And that's pretty unique because the Mackey State Hatchery has probably the most variety out of any state fish hatchery in the state. And so we're raising some really cool stuff like California golden trout and Arctic grayling. And we're raising them up to a size that's a little bit larger than what they traditionally do at the state hatchery. And so my students have the opportunity to help those uh, fish make it to some alpine lakes, and so we do a little bit about backpacking. Had the opportunity to take some up with a helicopter to Airplane Lake for a research project. So, I mean, these fish are coming out of our disease-free facility, and they can go anywhere in the state of Idaho. They're
Wow.
the state fish, and so besides having that
So are
hydroponic,
kids getting to backpack in and stock lakes too?
yes, they are.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And so each fall we have this little fishery that was created by our student Callie Gamet over a decade ago, and we've been maintaining that fishery. That was the first time California golden trout had successfully been released in a stream in Idaho, and it's a really awesome fishery. So my students do the monitoring of it in partnership with the U.S. Forest Service. In the fall, we go do some electrofishing. And so somebody's got a backpack, an anode and a cathode, and there's some electrical pulses, and the fish come up to the top of the surface, and my students have the opportunity to net them out, and then they do the weighing and do some length checks, and we are able to predict how many fish are there, so we know how many to release the next year. So we do that, and we have a very large greenhouse, and for our town kids, they have the opportunity to raise some market lambs at the school. And, we have a tractor and some drones and some other equipment and our own FFA bus.
Nice.
Yeah, it seats 59. And since 1987, we're coming up on our 40th trip going to the National FFA Convention via bus. Out of all the schools, we travel the furthest out of any school that's traveling on an annual basis. And so that 40th year that we're going to be going is going to match up with the 100th National FFA Convention. So we're pretty excited about it.
That's amazing. So where's the 100th being held?
It's in Indianapolis, and since they moved it there, and that's where the FFA Center is, I predict that we're not going to be leaving Indianapolis for some time.
That makes sense.
Yep.
So one of the things that fresh, it's been a frustration for me with agriculture education, and not in a necessarily bad way towards anyone in particular, but kind of just how it's viewed culturally is, it's set up to be a vocational program, but then, I was looking at it at one point and like the state average for Idaho on uh retention or proficiency in the different standards was like 23% or something like that. So I really love that, I'm so many programs, the kids, they graduate and they've taken all these vocational classes and are supposed to be able to, the thought is go out and find jobs. And when they have a 23% proficiency, that's not happening, or it's not happening well. So I
Mm.
really love that you're giving the kids that you're working with this like really like hands-on experience where they're not only learning about it, they're doing it, they're making the choices, they're doing the research, which is something I haven't seen in a lot of ag programs.
Yeah, I think our ag programs are getting more successful. I mean, we just saw a huge climb in the technical skills assessment scores from this last year.
That's great.
And some of it's just figuring out where the standards are and kind of figuring out the test. But there's a lot of ag teachers that are striving to do better. But also, students, I think a lot of times they're not sure what they want to go into. And that motivation factor sometimes isn't there to do well on a particular test. But
Right.
I've
Well,
I've
like
had
the ag classes are kind of either you're doing it because your friends are, or because sometimes it's the easy science credit, or easy with quotation science credit.
yeah.
Um
And
and then
sometimes
there's the
people
kids
are in
that
a
really care.
class and they're not
Mhm.
ready to receive that particular instruction at the time. I've had a number of students that have been in, our fish and wildlife class and they've worked in the fish lab. And, at the time they're scrubbing some fish tanks, they get to do some cool things. And it's like, I don't think I want to do this. And then they get off to college pursuing that other thing that they want to pursue. And then they realize, you know what? All work, all jobs become work at some particular point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have that big realization and they'll look back and say, you know what? I actually really enjoyed that fish lab. At the time I wasn't, but now I am. And I've had students that were studying something else, but then they ended up working in the fisheries later. And you see that, especially like my greenhouse. I mean, it's phenomenal. We're out in the greenhouse every day. We probably run one of the largest plant sales in the state of Idaho. We have people that travel over 100 miles one way just to specifically shop at our greenhouse. We
That's
boast a
wonderful.
huge variety. And in the moment, the students, I think they think that this is an opportunity that everybody else has, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've got students that drag their feet. It's like, no, do we have to go out in the greenhouse and work again? But then I see them 5, 6 years later, and now they're homeowners. And
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like a giant reunion. And they're in the greenhouse shopping for their own property, asking questions. I couldn't get and ask those questions when they were in high school, but now that they're a homeowner and they have a new lens, it all clicks for
I mean, I can completely understand that. When I was taking ag in college or in high school,
them. Yeah.
we were digging these like little tiny potato plots on the side of a hill, and it just seemed, and we each had our own plot, or we had a partner with our plot or something, and I
Mm,
felt like this was horrible. And then our class was just like learning what a leaf was, and I was like, I am not interested in doing this at all. Like, I mean, I grew up on a ranch, but I was like, this is
um,
not going to be like what I do when I grow up, and went to college as a business major first. And before I knew it, I was right back on the ag track, and ended up working in food plants, being the annoying food safety specialist,
yeah. There you go.
which I loved. I actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Um, sorry, I blanked. I had a question already. So, are you seeing more of your students, the ones that do end up pursuing ag, are they going into more um, commercial, or are you seeing more of your kids kind of going more towards just like small farming?
So this particular valley that I'm in, I
Hmm.
mean, people have to be related to individuals, but it's also kind of like, yeah, I think it's the University of Wyoming's got a new program where they're offering a bachelor's for people to become ranch caretakers.
Oh,
We're
wow.
we're seeing a lot of these small ranchers. Uh, all of a sudden, they're selling. Their kids might not be interested in it, or you know what, they want to have a life, a great retirement, and so they sell their
You can
operation.
have,
Afterwards, they want to retire. And so what they'll do is they will sell the property or even their grazing allotment to somebody who's got a lot of money. And so we're seeing some of these ranches sell for millions of dollars, and then they're hiring caretakers for them. And so that's kind of the
that
complicated
sounds like a
issue.
great opportunity.
It does for local economies. If you have somebody that buys a ranch and they're not exactly interested in it producing or paying itself off
Hmm.
ever, because how do you do that with a few hundred beef cows, right? For what kind of money they spend on them. It's a vacation place, right?
Hmm.
When production stops being the main focus of these ranches, then they don't produce as many animals. The equipment doesn't break down as often. And, there's a chain reaction throughout a community. So I personally don't like seeing them sell to, I'd like to see them stay with young families and people that are investing in the community. But that's the nature of what we're seeing in these beautiful scenic places in Idaho and beyond, is that these ranches are getting bought up. So, for some of these students, they're not related to the ranchers that are in the area. I have students that are studying plant science and horticulture. I've got students that have gone into vet tech, but when you are the only career technical educator, you try to prepare students for anything, whatever you can. At a time, we didn't have anybody teaching these kids how to cook. And so, we do quite a bit of cooking in the classroom.
That's great.
And, uh, we try to teach them some economics, try to teach them a little bit of personal finance when we can. We also try to prepare these students for the trades. And so I've got a number of students that are going and studying diesel. And my hope is that we're providing these students with skills and providing them with opportunities that they can come home and work if they want to, that they can return home. Probably our chief export in this little valley are our kids
Yeah.
and sending them off. So we'd like to make
Yeah, it's
sure
hard
that
and
we've
sorry.
produced them. Yeah, we want to make sure that they can be successful anywhere, but that they can come home and be successful in the careers that
Yeah.
exist here.
It's definitely a really hard one is there's just not work for, kids in small towns anymore. And like you said, if they're not related. And that's why when you told me about the degree program, I was like, what a great opportunity because yeah, it really is hard to get into farming or ranching when your biggest capital input is your land.
Yeah.
And so if they can work and learn how to run a ranch, and a lot of times I know these ranchers let them start their own small herds and things like that, where after a certain amount of years, it'd be much easier for them to apply for ag loans and things like that when they have, 15 years of experience running a ranch before they are going out and looking for big land loans.
And you touched something very interesting, ag loans. I have students that come up and say, Mr. Van Leuwen, I want to get into ranching and farming. How do I do that? I say, well, you know, because where you're at and your family, what I recommend is go study agricultural economics or ag business at a university, come out and get a job with a farm credit services, and then you have the opportunity as you're approving these people of loans to understand which operation is making money and who happens to have a single son or daughter, right? And you can marry into that.
There's so much truth to
That's
that.
that's probably the easiest way to get into farming and ranching today, right?
Yeah, sometimes that is the only way, but
Yep.
it's actually an interesting conversation. I have my son's girlfriend is spending the summer here with us. She's going to college over in Washington, and she is literally getting baptism by fire on what it's like to be a
Yeah.
full-time farm wife, EMS wife, like, that type of thing. This poor girl we have ran her ragged.
Hmm.
And I said, well, this is the best time to find out if you're one of those people that's cut out for this or not.
Yeah.
I say that my life is every day a surprise marathon that I didn't sign up for. Of course, in our case, I'm the one who grew up ranching, and my husband is always asking me what to
Yeah.
do. So as you're seeing like kids go out into the real world, I guess is the best way to put that. What's something that you are either trying to focus on more or that you're seeing that you need to implement more for these kids, whether they're going into agriculture or just any type of career?
Well, I think resiliency, they got to be resilient. They've got to understand how to ask questions. I mean, we're in the age of AI, and AI is supposed to solve our problems, but you have to know which questions to ask, and you've got to have some kind of ability to see what quality workmanship is and
Hmm.
to understand where you can find those resources. I mean, the students that were graduating, they have to be able to ask the right questions. And what's unfortunate is with AI, a lot of times they are missing out on doing the hard things, whether it be digging potatoes on a hillside, right? I
You
mean,
and
there
now I
is,
do that for fun.
yeah,
My
right.
husband's
But
like, we don't need a potato patch, and I'm like, I love it.
yeah, I mean, the hard part of doing research and things like that, right? I mean,
Mm,
they need to have those struggles so that they can appreciate the tool, right? I mean,
I
you can really
absolutely.
appreciate a backhoe when you've done a lot of shoveling.
Oh yeah. I mean, I really appreciate that because one of the things that I say all the time, like as a, when I was a science major and then like working in the field and stuff, is I don't have to know everything. I just need to know where to find it.
Yep.
And I think that that's the key is, even whether it's using AI or, any type of, Google search or just blindly believing
Hmm.
what someone's telling you, if you don't know the right questions to ask, you're not going to find the answer. And it's like between that and ethics of, using, like AI for creation and stuff like that, there's a really fine line that I don't know that is being taught or respected at the level that we kind of need to.
Absolutely. I mean, but we have to have the right questions, but I mean, we need to have authentic experiences, and I believe that a lot of uh, kids today are, starving to have some empathy and to develop empathy for other people. I think we're pretty deficient in the amount of empathy that people have for others. And so, those authentic experiences, working alongside other people and being able to see things from a different point of view is really incredible also.
Hmm.
And, the one-to-one screen time is robbing us of those opportunities. If we can get kids out in the world to talk to their neighbors and help in a community and do community projects, they start to see themselves in a community and as individuals that, are helping develop a community. And I think that community is something that we're missing out on, that we shouldn't
Hmm.
be replacing the sense of community with people that are our peers and people that are around us. We shouldn't be replacing it with social media with people that are, you know, uh, just promoting random things, right? So,
Right. I mean, even myself, I get on social media sometimes, and usually my scrolling is work related, but sometimes I
yeah,
just want to scroll. I tell my kids all the time that our phones are amazing tools, and one of those tools is education or is entertainment, but it's just one form of entertainment.
absolutely.
And I was trying to scroll myself the other night, and every single thing was trying to like sell me something, convince me of something. And I was like, I want to see pictures of like baby cows and, you know,
Yeah,
like sometimes you just want like that relax. And I feel like it's just um, constantly being, pushed at us all the time. So you have recently wrote a book, correct?
yeah, that's correct.
On helping other ag educators um, teach ag or teach like, hands-on experiences. You want to tell us a little bit more about that? Like I am, because I'm really interested.
Okay, so I wrote a book. It's called Take a Little Field Trip. And I wrote it not just for ag educators, but for anybody in career technical education and elementary and high school education to kind of help them in planning and preparing for field trips or student travel. So I, you know, kind of wrote it as a way of first off killing the boredom of the Mackey winters, because I mean we've got like 8, 9 months of winter and cold. So I wrote it for that for myself, but also I'd been asked many times, "Hey, how do you do a field trip, or how do you take students across the country?" Because I mean,
Hmm.
we've traveled over 50,000 miles through 33 states with students, and I've
Wow.
taken students from many different places. I've been counting up all the different tours and field trips, even the local ones. I think I'm up to 150 different types of field trips that we've gone on in the last 12 years. And so how do we uh, help others in those parts of education? I think a lot of times we've been glossing over authentic education experiences like field trips. My own ag ed degree, there may have been some conversation, but there's not a field trip class. I mean, my student
Hmm.
teaching year, we received a list of like 100 different techniques for teaching, and field trips was one little box we could have checked off. But uh, teachers today, a lot of them, they have been prepped for all kinds of things, but they have anxiety about field trips and student travel to the point that it's almost crippling and they're not taking students on field trips or traveling with students.
That's a bummer. I mean, I can see it though, because besides just all the work that goes into it, I teach at a homeschool co-op,
Yeah.
and a great group of kids, but I get so excited about something and something I want to share with them, something I want to do with them, and I'll sit up all night and cut out little things and have it all ready to do this like amazing class with them. And it's either a lot of times either blank stares or they're like literally going bat poop crazy.
Yeah.
And I couldn't imagine doing that with a group of teenagers on a regular basis. Like I could see where that would be really stressful. But if you can find ways to really have the kids locked in and excited about what's happening, they're going to, you know, get in line, literally.
Yeah. And, it's that empathy piece. You get them out of the classroom to see other producers and the things that people are doing. They develop empathy for them.
Hmm.
One of the things that's great about podcasts and the reason people listen to them is people love to listen to people talk about what they're passionate about,
Yeah.
right? And when you get somebody to, say, a walleye farm in Minnesota, and you've got somebody who's really passionate about talking about walleye, right? Those kids might not have any interest whatsoever, but at that moment, they all want to be walleye producers. They love listening to somebody, right?
Right.
And, you know, uh, probably one of the themes of the book is the tour guide makes the tour. And if you can find the right person, their facilities don't have to be fantastic or immaculate or anything like that, or the best facilities, but it's really the tour guide that makes a field trip work.
I agree. Although I do have to say, don't take kids on field trips to the best facilities because then you're just setting them up for disappointment and ag.
And often we don't. I mean, some of these places we go to, we I find them on like Google Maps. I'll be like,
Uh-huh.
hey, you know what? I want to go to a cranberry farm, right? So I just start looking and I'll contact somebody and they'll answer the phone a lot of times and they'll say, well, we got some really great stuff going on, but just not really interested in giving a field trip. And my follow-up question is there somebody who does something similar to you that you know of that would love to give a field trip? And every one of them knows the person that wants to talk about their operation and highlight what they're doing. And so, I mean, I've been to a fish farm, and I think our own fish facility in Mackey's more impressive. But we don't go to see that fish facility. We go to see the character that's the tour guide for that facility, right? So,
Yeah, because it's the excitement behind it. I mean, we give tours on our farm a lot, and man, like my son can talk about his cow. He has his own line of dairy cows that he raises.
yeah.
I can talk about our heritage pigs for hours. We raise Herefords, so
Mhm.
but then like this morning, I'm out there. I spent the last 2 days trying to set up irrigation for my raspberries because it's so hot and so smoky. And I realized the irrigation was broke, and my kids and my littles are like, we're crawling through the raspberry bushes. I get it all set up, Realized that wasn't going to work. And so this morning I was like, I'm just going to go out there. I'm going to fix the pig hose and hook it up to a sprinkler and just get water on these raspberries.
Yeah.
Put a new end on the hose, got it all hooked up. Have to go climb like into the pig pen because that's where the faucet is. Turn it on and it blew the hose out and water's shooting straight up in the air. And I was like, that's it. I'm just going to burn it all down. Like, done. And
And
then I looked at my clock and realized we had a podcast in 10 minutes. So
yeah. And that's life in ag, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
That's how it is, most days. But the thing is, when we love it, we're going to keep doing it no matter what.
Yeah. Well, just like Sisyphus pushing that rock up the hill, I mean, and having it roll down on top of him all the time, right? That's us in agriculture. We get a win every once in a while. And sometimes, if you're going to fail, you got to fail gloriously.
You know what? Yeah, sometimes. I mean, my win this week was a personal win as I drove by and saw that our biggest sow was out for the 17th time that day, and she was taking a really good nap under the like barnyard. And I was like, you know what? Enjoy your nap. And I just kept driving.
Yeah. She wasn't hurting anything, right?
Nope, she was good.
Yeah.
I sent the kids up about an hour later and told them to put her away, but
Yeah.
and when they tell you that pigs can't jump, they're lying.
Yeah. They'll clear a fence
Yo, yeah. I went
or
even in
push it over.
college. Yeah, in college they'd tell you, oh, you just need the little short, like hog panels because pigs can't jump.
Yeah.
Well, I raise 350 pigs a year, and I have seen almost every single one of them clear a fence.
Yeah.
Um, so when you go out, like you go out on the road, you go to different conferences and stuff. What's something that you're talking about, and like what are you seeing people are wanting to know about, like setting up um ag education for their schools or programs?
I think everybody's trying to look and find a different lab or something new to teach. Everybody wants to offer an opportunity to provide a more authentic experience and something that's low cost. And a lot of times, we're looking for creative solutions for teaching. And, there's people that teach pig breeds, right?
Hmm.
And their way of doing it is, making some little pop bottle pigs, right? And having the kids paint them and stuff. And, that's probably a good use of your time, but it might not be the best use of your time, right? I mean, there's a good way of doing things, there's a better way, and then a lot of times there's a best. And sometimes we just have to choose the best way of instructing. There are so many opportunities today with curriculum, and there's expensive lab aids that are out there. I mean, there are individuals that will spend thousands of dollars to have a fake cow that the students can practice artificial insemination on. But if you know a butcher, they're able to, through the USDA inspections and all that, they're able to provide you for free, a lot of times, repro tracks. And they can
Hmm.
donate them for research. And so you can get some free repro tracks and you can get some of the supplies and you can have the kids put on some sleeves and gloves and you can throw a black plastic bag over a cow's repro tract and you can teach artificial insemination like I do. You don't have to
Hmm.
invest in thousands of dollars for having something that's synthetic to do it with, right? And I would argue that the cheaper opportunity and avenue for teaching some of these things is better than the expensive lab that's available out there.
Right? Or my
So,
AI lab where you just got pooped on the whole time.
yep, right. You could get in front of the cows too, right? A lot of times, for these kids, it's something to ease them into.
Hmm.
It's one thing to start off with a repro track that's covered up with a bag, and you can get them to there where they can feel comfortable. They're learning the anatomy, and then you can get them to the chute. And,
Yeah.
it's a point about, taking students by the hand and kind of guiding them to something a little bit more difficult and
Giving them
getting
the
them out of their
confidence to do
comfort zone.
things like outside of their comfort. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's one of the questions I get asked the most is how do you teach agriculture when you don't live on a farm or you don't have all the things to teach it? And, any homeschool, private school, micro school, any school that, can't qualify for, grants through the state to fund their farms, or
Yeah,
it's finding those ways outside the box to learn the same thing.
absolutely. I mean, and it's cool. There's a lot of people that are raising quail today, right? If you can't build a chicken coop, you can build a
Mhm.
quail house and you can have many quail and still have more eggs than you'll know what to do with,
I
right?
raised quail during COVID and was making 1,800 a month on day old chicks.
That's incredible,
And I did
right?
it with just two styrofoam incubators in my guest room. Like,
There you go.
so, if you can think outside the box, you can make money doing about anything in ag. So,
Yeah, and that's the case in aquaculture. You can go see a national fish hatchery, and the feds have got the money to have the latest and greatest, but probably the most profitable operations are the ones where they figured out that anything that holds water can be a fish tank. And what do they do? The first thing you do if you want to be a fish farmer is you find something that holds water really well, and then you put a hole in the bottom of it, right? And you put in a bulkhead tank fitting and you get a standpipe and you start building something. But I mean, if it holds water, it'll keep fish alive.
I know that one. I used to be a hunting guide and I lived in a cabin out in the woods for the whole season.
Yeah.
And there was this little pond, but the fish always tasted a little funky to me.
Yeah.
So, just some bass. And so I literally got one of those blue containers from Walmart and I set up a fish tank pump to it and I'd go fishing, catch the fish, throw them in there. And I didn't eat them until they'd been in there for a week or so and got all cleaned
Hmm.
out. And that was my little fish tank in my living room.
Yep. It can be done.
Hmm. So, a lot of people don't realize that, fisheries are part of agriculture, and that's something you've talked about a lot. What are some careers kids can go into in that field?
Well, for our particular locale, we've got a brood facility that's owned by Riverence. So that's north of town. And they're actually producing trout roe caviar, but also
Hmm.
they harvest eggs, and those eggs go to other facilities where they grow out fish. And it's kind of cool. They're playing with the lights and they've got sheds so they can have spawners year round because, they've got the photoreceptors in their retinas. And so, as they determine the change in day length, then they start producing eggs. So they have to manipulate that. We have a state fish hatchery, but also we have the U.S. Forest Service got an office and we've got people that work in the fisheries with them. So fortunately for us, we've got, some careers in fish biology, but my goal is to have my students' applications, job applications and resumes go to the top of the pile. That the experience that they're getting at Little Mackey High School will qualify them in these positions beyond the other programs that are out there. And I mean, they don't have the same dual credit opportunities or the AP opportunities, but I want an application from a kid from Mackey to go to the top of the pile. But also, my goal is there's a bit of a divide between um, ranching and farming and fish that sometimes they're in the crosshairs. As you can imagine, with like bull trout being on the endangered species list, there's a lot of issues where they don't exactly, these fields don't get along. And my goal is to produce the next group of fish biologists that understand ranching and understand agriculture. And I want to produce the future ranchers that understand the fisheries, and so that we can build some collaborations and be able to have great conversations about how we can do both.
That's excellent. I mean, you hear a lot about how agriculture is an old boys club. And, some people can play the game and some people can't, but being able to teach a group that can cross those borders and not have to like join the club,
Yeah.
I think is, and I'm not even I don't even have an issue with the old boys club. Like I think my dad was their president for a while. Um, but yeah, I think that that's one of the barriers in people wanting to go into agriculture is thinking that because they didn't grow up with it, or because yeah, the farmers don't like the fisheries, and there's always some sort of drama or dilemma, and like having them be able to navigate those in a different way is wonderful.
And a lot of it's just being able to have empathy for other people, to be able to see from their side and be able to understand their arguments, instead of throwing up a wall and not hearing from a particular side. I think there's a lot of opportunities to get together and to talk about things. So, like, I'm a chairman for the Farm Bureau Lands Committee that, talks about issues on state and federal lands. And a few years ago, we had a really great tour over in the Hawaii's where we had people from the BLM office and ranchers were working on coming up with fire breaks using cows to graze down grasses so that these fires aren't as explosive and damaging in the Hawaii's. Right. And we've been up to northern Idaho around Kendrick having those same types of conversations. How can we use cows to be able to put in fire breaks? And the things that they're learning and trying to get the word out. And I think there was a frustration because they figured out some really great things in those Hawaii experiments that you try to fence off all the cows next to the road. You got to have a road to be able to have a fire break. You got to be able to get fire engines. You got to be able to get tankers down the road so you can fight the fire as it's jumping the road.
Hmm.
So putting those fences against the road and putting in miles of fence just doesn't work. But having areas understand that the cows like to graze down on the road and you put the water troughs down there, they create a nice little gradient where the grass might be really short next to the road. It might get a little bit taller, but I mean, if we can get 150, 200 feet of grazed down area along the road, we can hold a fire. The other thing that they learned is if there was any brush whatsoever alongside the road, they could not keep that fire from jumping. Any type of brush was the thing that was going to lead to that fire going. And so they started mowing down stuff. They started mowing down, the shad scale and the sagebrush. And one thing that they learned is if they mechanically mowed down that shad scale, the cows would come in afterwards and they would browse it down also because all that new growth, it was something that the cows would actually go after. And I mean, lots of great things, but there's people in other offices that don't want to hear anything about their successes in the Hawaii's doing this because you know what? Cows aren't the solution for anything in some people's eyes. So, that opportunity to have empathy, but be able to have conversations with other people to maybe challenge our preconceived notions is so important. And that's what we need to do in education. Make
I
sure
agree.
people can converse.
Especially with the cow thing, I really wish that there would be more open conversations about that because a lot of these places, if they would, they could probably charge the farmer to bring their cows in rather than have to pay for the equipment to cut it down.
Yeah. We look at the states that have outlawed hound hunting for various reasons in different
Hmm.
states, and now we're paying people to go and hunt mountain lions because there's problem mountain lions.
I wrote an article in Western Outdoor Weekly several years ago on reopening mountain lion hunting in California and what the revenue from the tags would do for the conservation efforts. And I don't know if they ever listened to it, but I was pretty proud of it.
Yeah. And you can understand everybody's sides, but I mean, nothing happens if we don't have conversations.
Hmm. So, my favorite question to ask everybody as we kind of get towards the end here is what does keep growing mean to you?
Well, I think keep growing means just overcoming failure. A fail is, first attempt in learning. And we can grow as individuals and we can figure out better ways of doing things. Uh, like one particular project we took on, we have hatched out chicks before in our facility. And, we've sometimes had successes that I wasn't terribly proud of. And I had a new student teacher this spring, and we had a conversation, if we're going to fail, let's go ahead and fail gloriously, right? So we decided to get some emus. And so we were going to attempt to incubate emus, right?
Hmm.
So all the research that went into that, and we had something like 48 days of turning these huge emu eggs. One of them uh, wasn't going to ever hatch. So that's what we're up against. And then the other one, we're pretty delighted. I mean, this thing is bobbing and kind of, wiggling
Hmm.
up for us. And we were putting a pen and pencil on it, watching the pen and pencil gyrate as the scene was stretching. But I mean, about day 60, it went quiet. And we
Oh.
did the post-mortem on it. I mean, it was a little bit heartbreaking for me, the kids or student teacher, but we were really hoping to have an emu hatch. And, after 60 days, that's a long time to have your
Yeah, that
hopes
was a
up.
lot of work.
And, we did the postmortem and it was in a bad position. Its beak needed a pip internally and break into the air cell. And its beak
Hmm.
was in the complete opposite corner. It would have had to punch a hole through its own yolk sac to be able to hatch successfully. And
No,
that's what we were left with. But I mean, we took the other egg and we blew it out. So now we have an emu egg to pass around, and we preserve the other one so we can show how the position's wrong. But, the kids understood that we did everything that we could, and, they all want to try again. So this next spring, we're going to go ahead and attempt to hatch out some emus, right?
that's
But
awesome.
I mean, the things that we're able to learn from two emu eggs, it was immense. And everybody hatches out, chickens and quail, but we wanted to try something different. So, I mean,
Hmm.
that's us trying to grow.
Yeah, I know that's great. And even with chicken eggs, there's just I think that one is such a good one that the kids learn so much. I mean, we do several batches a year of chicken or quail or whatever we happen to have
Yeah.
going on at the time. I overwinter my chickens and then I hatch out a couple of batches, and so that way we have chicks or we have pullets in the fall to start laying when everyone else stops. And a couple of years ago, we decided to do a couple more batches and sell day olds. But we had a couple of meat birds from the year before that had escaped Butcher Day somehow and were
Yeah.
hiding in the bushes, and we found them and just threw them in the coop and said, we'll butcher them when we have time.
Yeah.
And apparently they had bred with our other chickens. I don't know if they were the roosters or the hens, I don't know. But half of this batch came out completely deformed. And I had never seen anything like this before. I mean, we had crossed beaks, they had giant feet and like their like elbow bones were sticking out through the skin and stuff.
Yeah.
And at first we were like, what in the world? Like, did they not get rotated properly? Because sometimes you'll get like the deformities with that and stuff.
Hmm.
And it ended up we did like a ton of research, and then uh we ended it by listening to the book Big Chicken on how the three-way cross of Cornish crosses came to be, and kind of were like, I think that that's what it was, is they just couldn't crossbreed with our chickens and end up with anything that looked like a chicken.
And those kinds of things happen all the time, right?
Hmm.
And in agriculture, it doesn't take very long to find something that nobody else has seen or attempted to do, right?
Hmm.
I mean, when you get into these things, there's different ways of doing stuff and the learning opportunities that exist. Like, why is it that this particular lake you know, won't keep fish alive? Or why is it and all the different conditions? I mean, it's an incredible opportunity to grow as we have those questions, right? And it's
Yeah,
gotten easier to get answers to these questions.
that it has. I mean, that's amazing in itself. I remember hours in the library trying to go through scientific papers that now you can bring up on the internet and read, and that would have been game changing in college.
Yeah.
So, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you, where they can find your book, anything you want to add as we head out?
Yeah, if you're interested in the book, take a little field trip. It's available on Amazon, and I have a website called Take a Little Field Trip. We're constantly trying to add some stuff. There's a couple little blog posts in there, and then I do have a Facebook author page.
All right. Well, I will make sure that I link all this in the show notes, and I really love what you're doing, and I wish you the best of luck.
Okay, well, thanks, Cody. It's nice talking to you today.
You
Have a
too.
great day,
Have a good one.
and good luck with all the fires up there. We hope it gets contained really soon.
Thank you. If this episode helped you think differently about food, education, or responsibility, make sure you're following the show. Listen all the way to the end each week, and don't forget to leave a review. Agricultural education matters, and it belongs in homes and communities, not just institutions. I'm Cody Hanner, and this is the Homestead Education. Keep growing.